This is a short revision video on the character of Sohrab in the Kite Runner. There isn't too much to Sohrab as a character because he doesn't say very much. We don't get a massive insight into how he thinks and how he feels. We just know that he's ashamed of his past and terrified of returning to orphanages. His character arc essentially reflects the whole idea of the loss of innocence. He goes from being normal to being sexually abused by the Taliban. In a sense, you could draw a parallel between his character arc and the character arc of his father, Hassan. Both were sexually abused by Asif, going from normal to having this terrible feeling of shame about them. The major difference between them is that Sohrab, Amir wanted to save, and Hassan, Amir almost pushed away. Incidentally, Sohrab was named after a character in one of Hassan's favourite stories when he was a child. There's a story about a guy called Rostam and a guy called Sohrab and their enemies, and Rostam ends up killing Sohrab and then finds out that it's his long-lost son, which is obviously quite ironic because it's the same as Amir and Hassan almost, because Amir pushes Hassan away, only to find out that, shock horror, he's actually related to Hassan, the same way that Sohrab was related to Rostam. Here you can see two sort of the more statements about Sohrab rather than like insights into his personality and character. But then on the quotes in the next few slides we can look a bit more into his personality and his feelings. So we know he was a victim of sexual abuse, definitely by Asif and maybe by the other people. I think he was probably raped by multiple members of Taliban, and he also attempts to kill himself. For anyone who just relied on the film to get to know the plot of the Kite Runner, you don't have that whole section with Sohrab trying to kill himself, I don't think, within the film. So it's very, very important to read the book before the exam, because you see so much more depth to all of the characters and you get a much better idea of the story. Here are some quotes about the sexual abuse that was endured by Sohrab throughout the time he spent with the Taliban. If we look at the top quote here, we see that he's very, very vulnerable. He's been abused and now he's vulnerable. His head's been shaved, so he's got a naked head. You can't see it here, but he's also got naked feet that he looks down to. Nakedness, vulnerability, innocence, they all go together. So we see that as a character, Sohrab was very, very vulnerable to the abuse that the Taliban threw upon him. If you look at the second quote here in your head, you might get an idea of a monkey. And there's this little story that Amir tells about the monkey man that Hassan and himself used to chase, and they used to pay him a rupiah of their allowance for a dance. And it made the same noise. The bell here, you've got the bells here, and the bell that the monkey wore made the same sound. So they're sort of comparing the monkey to Sohrab and the monkey man to Asif. And the monkey man was the person that controlled the monkey, had all power over the monkey, controlled everything the monkey did. So essentially Asif was controlling every single aspect of Sohrab's life. The monkey probably never wanted to do this weird dancing the same way that Sohrab doesn't want to dance and entertain these people. He just hasn't got any choice. And if you want to get a line that sort of shows the depth of the sexual abuse, you look at quote 3 there, the way he feels him up. It's very, very unpleasant description there. And you might want to look at the choice of words. We've got the boy and the child. It shows someone that's young. The word child, it reeks of innocence. You think innocence, innocence, and then you've got this grown man feeling up a child. You immediately think paedophile. So we have these negative feelings towards Asif. We're probably feeling very, very sympathetic towards Sohrab. The last line there is taken from a bit later on in the story, when Sohrab's talking to him. He's saying, I'm so dirty and full of sin. Here we really get to see the true depth of what the Taliban have done to him. They've made him blame himself for what happened to him. And then if you look at the whole passage there, he's, rocking backward and forth, he's like sobbing. And this shows the depth of his distress that's been caused by the Taliban. And here Sohrab actually admits that he's been raped, says, they did things, the bad men and 2 others, they did things to me. And if you looked here, you could see the way that he resisted. It says, he resisted a little. This shows the depth of his untrust. He's not very trusting of anybody. I mean, you wouldn't be trusting of someone you've just met either. But it tends to be with the rape victims. They find people they've known for years. They find it very hard to get close physical contact with them. So here, Hosseini has tried to emphasise the true mental impact of what's happened to Sohrab, for the reader to be aware of it. Now we're going to look at the way that Hosseini describes Sohrab's attempt to kill himself. We know that it's all anaphoric references, so all the time we're looking back at what's happened rather than forwards. So the first time we realise something's happened, it's already happened. It's when Amir goes into the bathroom and he starts screaming, but we don't know what's happened at that point. In fact, I had to read it a couple of times to work out that he'd actually tried to kill himself. I thought he just drowned or something by mistake. But here we've got this very, very vivid description in the top quote of what happened. I mean, it's probably quite a disturbing image for the reader the first time they come across it. And we've got this list of things. And when you get a list, it tends to emphasise each one. It all sort of grows and grows and grows, and you see the real severity of what's happened. And if you go down to the bottom quote there, this is right at the end when Sohrab's gone home and he's met with Soraya, I think her name is, Amir's wife, and we get these constant references to the fact that he did try to kill himself. The reader doesn't get to forget that. The reader's constantly reminded about this. But if we note now, they're jagged and pink. The word jagged implies that it wasn't just, a straight cut across the arm. It was jagged means, it probably took time and effort to actually saw through the arm, because it's not a straight line, it's jagged, which implies that Sohrab really was desperate to kill himself. I mean, the pain you would have felt when you're cutting yourself, but not straight across a slash. It was like real force. I think that emphasises the amount that Sohrab was suffering to be able to put himself through that. And then pink, rather than, red scabbed over, pink shows the time that's passed. I don't know if you've ever had any scars, but if you look at a scar, I mean, scars don't get to the pink stage for quite a while, so we can see the time that's passed between Sohrab trying to kill himself and them getting back to America. Woo, that's the end of Sohrab. I don't think there's very much that's going to come up about Sohrab, to be honest, simply because he's already come up in an analytical question. I think he was by himself, so the chances of him coming up in another analytical question are very slim. But it's a good idea just to know his character arc and the fact that he symbolises and represents the loss of innocence. I think that's just a key thing to think about. And that's the penultimate video, so just got one left now, and that's Soraya, and there really is nothing to say about Soraya. So that video will be shorter than this one, so I'll see you soon. Bye!